Hello there. What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios. Today I'm going to be sharing with you 5 things I would change about my Lego Star Wars Battle of Coruscant MOC. This is an ongoing series I have on the channel where every time after I finish a MOC project, I go through it and share with you 5 things I would or could change about the MOC if I were to do it again. This is just a fun way to get even more content out of a finished MOC. It's an important part of the MOC building process for me because I can take a look at a finished project and see what worked and what didn't and what could be improved upon, and then I can take what I learned into the next MOC project to make it even better. And keep in mind, this is about utilizing the MOC better and learning how I can improve as a builder. Some people take this video as I dislike the MOC or I'm kind of hating on it or disparaging it. I'm very proud of how Coruscant turned out. I'm very happy with the finished result. This is just another step of the MOC building process. All that being said, I think that's everything you need to know, so go ahead and execute order 66 on that like button and let's see what I would change.
In regards to the skyscrapers, I'm really happy with the design, the architecture, like how they look. It's the size that's off for me, and I think, probably a lot of people would agree. This skyscraper was actually the first thing that I built of the MOC, and when I originally built it, I think it was about this tall, and it was only 1 row of cylinders wide. So it was thinner and shorter, and this was my first time ever doing any kind of decent city build. So I just had no frame of reference in my mind, or just really no idea how big these needed to be, because when I built it, I actually even put a little door on the front because I was like, oh, it'd be cool to have doors for the skyscrapers. And then I actually visualized for the first time how small the skyscraper would be when I put it on top of here. And I realized, like, holy cow, there's no way that's, big enough. So I kept making them taller, making them wider, and then eventually I had to stop. I couldn't keep adding it. But looking at the finished MOC now, I think I would have liked to have made them even bigger. Obviously I can't go minifig scale. There's just no way, that's just completely unrealistic. But you can see I've got a lot of space up here. I could have gone even bigger with these. So I think what I would change or could change is make these maybe 1 to 2 more cylinders wider. So, it's about like that wide or something, and then make it maybe about right there. So basically just make it even taller and wider to where it's still not a minifig scale skyscraper, but it's closer. Because these are pretty tall, but you can see compared to a minifig, this is one of the tallest ones, and it's not that impressive. But if you were to add another 6 to 8 inches on there, that would be a pretty impressive skyscraper. And then this one, same process, this one being the same skyscraper, and then making sure to make these taller as well. I would have liked them to go up a little bit higher, but I just, by the time I was finishing up some of this stuff, I didn't really want to work on it anymore, and I felt like this looked good. The height of these looked good enough, but looking at it now, I think they could be a little bit taller. But then we have this guy over here. I honestly don't know if I would change this one, just because if you were to have a giant skyscraper right here, some of those cool shots that I got at the Senate building just wouldn't have been possible. And if you were to stand right here looking at it, you wouldn't be able to see that middle section of the Senate building because there'd be a big skyscraper there. So I think I would keep this one broken like this, but I probably would adjust the width to make it even wider. But as far as the number of skyscrapers go, I wouldn't change that. I really like 4, just because if you look at reference material of the actual Senate building, there aren't that many skyscrapers around it. It's mostly just a maze of these blocky building complexes. So this one was kind of a tough one to say I'd want to change it, just because obviously after you finish a MOC, you can always say like, oh yeah, I could have had more minifigs. I could have added some more, you know what I mean? Whereas when you're in the thick of things, it's not as easy to see that or know that, especially because with the clone trooper section, I decaled pretty much every single one of those clones. So a lot more work and effort went into collecting those. I wasn't able to just go on eBay and order in a bunch of clones. But looking at the finished MOC, I definitely would have liked to have done more, especially on the clone trooper side. You can see over here, I was planning on having more clones. There's a bunch of empty studs where there's supposed to be more clones adding to this squad running to the battlefront. And then I wanted to have, a bunch pouring down the steps, running up and down, giving reports up here, maybe a few more guarding the command post up here. But I ran out, and like I said, a lot more effort goes into creating these clones, and I was also building the MOC at the same time. And, just because I decal a clone doesn't guarantee it turns out good enough to be able to use the MOC. There are mess ups and stuff too. So just a lot of effort went into those, and this was basically as many as I felt like was good at the time, especially because I've never done this many clone troopers in a mock. So I was like, yo, 60 clone troopers, that's, you know, that's a lot, or 60 plus, however much it was. And then on the droid side of things, the more I've looked at this droid section, it just looks small. It's funny saying that because there's well over 100 battle droids here. And the issue is too, I'd have to add like another 50 or so to really make it look like there are more, because I've added more droids since the finale. Just, you know, tinkering with this mock, trying to make it look better, even though I'm not doing like another finale with it. Just, you know, wanting the mock to look the best it can be. I added, I think, another 10 to 15 droids. Probably more like 10, but I doubt you would know that if I didn't tell you that. You know what I mean? Like adding just 15 or so droids doesn't really change it, just because they fit into the little gaps and just kind of disappeared. So I'd need to add a bunch more back here. And I stopped adding droids. I do have another 20 I could have added, but it was starting to look weird because you can see a lot of these droids in the back basically look like they're shooting the droids in the front. And so I didn't want to have this line of droids looking like they were just shooting each other. But I realized what I could have done is just split off the droid sections more. I could have had more droids going into the bank or into the clone base here. I could have had a whole section of droids splitting off right here and going down this side street and engaging with the clones down there and attacking the civilians. I did have a few here, but obviously I could have done a much bigger group of like 20 or so. This is a good lesson learned for the next battle. I know, don't worry about having too many battle droids, just pile as many as you can in there. It'll look cool. And then with the clone trooper side of things, you know, just making sure I start decaling sooner. And now I know now I know what 60 looks like, and I can now, you know, bump it up to 70, 80 next time if I can. As I was filming the finale, I felt kind of bad because all of the Patreons are spread out all over the place. You've got 3 right there. There's a couple down over here on this alley, and then you've got some more up on the Senate building. And I didn't want any of the Patreon members to not be able to find or see their sig fig, you know, because that's part of the reason why you want to have a sig fig in a mock like this, to support it, but you know, you also want to see yourself in the mock. So I definitely want to build an actual structure where I can group them together. That way, you know, it's a little bit more exclusive. It adds to that, you know, level of intrigue of like, oh yeah, I want to have a Patreon. I want to be in that exclusive club. Kind of like what Rich Boy J does. He's another mock builder. He does something called a Boyo Lounge, which is really cool, where he builds like a little lounge or, you know, hangout area where all of his Patreons are together. And I like that better than this option. I did that in the last mock, Cato Nemoidia, but this being only the second mock I've done with Patreon members, I decided to try integrating them into the mock and, you know, have them actually fighting and doing stuff. But I just feel like it got too dispersed, and I want, you know, to be able to see the Patreons better and easier. Plus it'll be fun to build like a little side thing for them. I think maybe if I were to redo this, I would use the entertainment complex as my lounge. I thought about maybe ringing the entire top section up here with the Patreons, just like hanging out, looking down on the battlefield. You know, they've got like some drinks or some food and stuff, just because it's, you know, it's kind of separated from the mock but part of it, and it would kind of make sense, you know, to have a bunch of minifigs up here looking down on the battlefield below. And I thought it'd be kind of cool just, you know, have them ringing the edges of this, just hanging out and looking at the battlefield down below, or maybe, you know, going into here and looking out over the battle. Of everything in this video, the bank chandeliers are one of the things I'm most sure I would change. I just really don't like how they look. The chains don't hold the lights level, and we talked about how, you know, it kind of adds to like the battle damage vibe, and the bank is, you know, been hit by a ship, but I really don't like that, and I just don't like the way the chain looks when it's wrapped around the light, and it's kind of like a medieval gothic vibe. Like, you know, this is a bank in Coruscant, not a dungeon. So I want something a little bit more elegant, something a little bit fancier and more stable. And this is like the first prototype design I came up with. Like, I thought of what I wanted to do, threw it in here, and like it was within the last 4 or 3 weeks of building, and so I'd already turned my focus and sights on the Senate building, and so I basically just wanted to get this done. And, you know, typically when mock building, the first design or first build you come up with is not the best. It could definitely be improved upon, but I just didn't have the time or desire to change this. What I thought about changing it to is this design. You can see I built kind of like a pipe or tube out of these cylinder pieces, which are hollow, and then they're just connected together by these black pegs, which are also hollow. So I could easily string a light down through these, and you can see now the light at the bottom of the chandelier would be perfectly level. It wouldn't get knocked around. It would just all around look better, and I feel like match the vibe of the bank. These cylinders come in multiple colors, so if I didn't want black, I could go with gray, dark red, or any other color I wanted. And surprisingly enough, that's it. I was only able to come up with 4 things I would change about Coruscant. I'm sure there are a good few of you who probably thought the Senate building would make the list, and I too was one of those people up until I finished it and, you know, was kind of starting to think about this video, kind of planning a little bit. And I was just looking thinking about the Senate building, and there honestly isn't a thing I would change about it. I'm very happy with how it looks and how it turned out. I feel like I got the best result possible with the design I wanted and kind of the design choices I made. Obviously, I could go a different route with the roof. I could make a more Technic heavy frame, kind of like what Rich Boy Jay is doing with his Camino roofs. But that would mean changing the entire structure of the build, because this would need to be able to hold up that roof better. It would need to be able to bear more weight. So I'd basically have to change the complete structure and makeup and look of this build. And this is what I wanted. I wanted just kind of an empty shell of a building to represent the Senate building. I didn't want to go any deeper just because I knew how extensive and how just, you know, how big of an undertaking this whole mock was, and then adding a Senate building on top of that. I didn't want to bite off more than I could chew with this project and have this complex design and this whole idea for this Senate building and then not be able to execute it. Obviously, if I were to do this mock again, there would be adjustments made to the interior build, just kind of, you know, making it a little bit cleaner, a little bit more efficient, but I doubt that would really affect the look of the finished product.
As I was making this video, I was really hard pressed to find 4 things that I legitimately thought I would or could change if I were to do this mock again. And that makes me really happy, because it tells me I put my best foot forward with this mock and got the absolute best I could out of it. And I can walk away from Coruscant with no regrets, knowing I was able to capture my vision. And this whole series was hands down my favorite one I've ever done. Each week was full of small, complex technical builds. It felt like I was much more engaged in the mock instead of grinding through grueling filler work like building giant rock walls or laying down thousands of clear studs like I was in my last 2 mock projects. But that being said, there was still fun filler work to do, like tiling off the buildings and building roads if I got tired of the more action-packed stuff or needed a change of pace in the video. And I'm very pleased to report that my next mock series is going to be very similar to this one, which makes me super excited. That being said, that's everything I wanted to share with you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to let me know down below in the comments what you thought of the 4 things I would change, and I will catch you in the next one. But until then, happy building.